Now what I've got here is the front end that I'm going to put on this IMO that I'm building for this quick start guide. Now this is probably one of the more configurable front ends. It's got the heim joint on the bottom, and it's got this double linkage setup. Let's call it the pivot. So now once again, we've done this 10 degrees. So there's 10 degrees there. We've done a 10-degree offset right here on this, on your spindle piece. And then when we put it in the frame, we're going to tip it back 10 degrees. So that's what the 10-10-10 is. It makes it so that you can customize the front end the way it steers. You can pitch the tires, caster camber, and when you do this double linkage right here, then you can adjust toe in, toe out individually. So it improves performance, improves safety, makes the machine more reliable in the way it handles. The other thing that I want to mention right here is this angle too, for this pivot, or this pitman arm we'll call it. That I'm running at a 10 degrees as well. So when this is sitting perpendicular to the front end, this angle right here, I'm running that about 10 degrees, maybe 12 degrees. So that way they're all matching. So this front end is probably going to be the most expensive. You're looking at, these heim joints out here, 5/8, they're probably right around $10. Then you're going to have a tie rod end, four tie rod ends for each of your steering linkages, which allows you to adjust them in and out. So they're probably about $10 for the two, $5 a piece. So all said and done, with the material, the heim joints, the bolts, you're going to be looking at about $50 roughly for your front end to go this way. Now some of the other front ends and some of the other videos that I've gone through, it's cheaper. You don't have all the configuration options as far as caster camber, toe in, toe out, but it saves you some money and can get you on the track faster. So the other thing that I'd like to point out here is these bolt holes. Now, once again, I don't like to weld things solid when I don't need to. And I try to gauge that on what are the chances of it being bent, broke. So, if you have to change out your front end, say you hit a bell or something like that, or for some reason something happens on the front end, it's easier to not have to tear down the whole machine, take the motor off, fenders off, flip it upside down, and then spend hours grinding to get that front end out. So what I like to do is I will weld some flat bar up in here at 10 degrees. I'll weld another piece behind at 10-degree angle, and then I'll just slip this front end up in there, and then I'll bolt it. Now I'll put 4 bolts in it, and then the other thing that I will do is probably out here on this outer edge I'll put a couple little tacks just to help it, but it'll only be small little tacks, so that if I need to get the front end off, it would take me maybe 20 minutes with a grinder, and then I'm unbolting it and the front end's out. I can put it on my bench, I can rebuild what I need to do, or if I don't like the front end configuration, I want to try something else, then I unbolt it and build me a new one, swap it out. So that's one of the areas I see a lot of guys will weld those front ends solid, and I just don't like that. So anyway, so this is the front end we're going to put on this IMO machine that I'm building through this quick start guide. I've covered a lot of different options on the front ends, so just look through them, see what you want to do, see which is the best way to go. And the other thing you'll notice on here is I've notched this out. One of the things that I've noticed is you've got to have clearance. You're going to have your tie rod end right here, which will be a heim joint, and then you're going to have a bolt and a nut, so you've got to have enough clearance for that. And I like to put the tie rod end on the bottom, and then I'll put this other tie rod end piece that goes to the linkage on top, and you've got to have enough room that they won't hit each other. So because I've used this big heavy tubing, this 3-inch, what I've done is I notched this out so I have clearance, and that's all that is. The other thing here with my pivot is this front end's going to sit in the frame at 10 degrees. Now this is flat. I kind of messed up here. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to cut on the back side and kind of cut down here, and I will tweak that at a 10 degree so that it'll be straight all across the bottom for the steering linkage. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'll get those changes, we'll get it bolted in, and then I'll just kind of go over a quick review of what I've done and why. The other thing that I want to mention here is, we'll weld this bolt on as a stop so that your wheel won't go all the way in against the spindle. And then, more importantly, as you build these, once again, you kind of want to lay them out and find out what you're going to be on your outer width. The rule set goes from outside of the tire to outside of the tire. I think the rules that we follow are 39 inches is max. The way I've achieved that is I've put the wheels together, put the bearings in, built this assembly out of square tubing that I cut in half for this piece, flat bar that I bent for this piece, and then once I put the wheel on and bolt it down to where it'll spin freely where it's going to sit, then I'll measure from the outside here to here, right there. Then I'll have that measurement. So you times that by 2, and then that's what this axle piece is going to be. And then that way I can fall within the rule set, and I won't get disqualified for being too wide. So that's all I have for now. A lot of information on front ends. There's a lot of different variations that you can do. That's why there's so much on it, and a lot of ways to achieve that. You can modify just the stock, leave all the steering pieces stock, put your spindle out there to lower the front end so you can get rid of those drop spindles that come from the factory. You can go all the way, you can go a half modified like I've showed you in some of the other videos. You can go all the way up to this. So other than that, I'll make these changes, and we'll move on to the steering shaft, and we'll talk about steering gearing for this direct steering type. Probably cover some of them that have been left at stock, show you what they do with the gear set, and then from there we'll move on to clutching, and we'll put this thing back on its wheels.